welcome everybody. It's really, really good to see so many different faces, to see so many people that are engaging. I know it's not easy. You know, everybody's going through a challenging time in many different ways. And the fact that you all take time out to commit to each other is what the business cluster is all about. So it's greatly appreciated, and thank you for supporting each other. Today's program's really, really interesting because I think what it does is it focuses on the here and now, but it also starts to look forward. And it's really important for us now in the cluster that we do start to think forward and we do start to sort of lift our heads above the parapet just a little bit. So we're delighted to be able to welcome Trudy Harrison MP, who obviously gives a local perspective, but equally important is able to give a national perspective as well, given that she sits alongside the Prime Minister in the Cabinet. So it's fantastic, Trudy, that you're able to take the time with us today. We've also got no less an impressive character as Garry Smith from Thomas Graham & Sons, and also Paul Manning as well. You know, personal protective equipment is massively in the news, sort of looking forward how we go into a new normal with social distancing, etc. And the quality and assurance around the stuff that we're using becomes additionally important. So we're looking forward to hearing from you guys. And then we've also got a 3x3 presentation from one of our newest members called the ScrubHub. So thanks so much to those guys. ScrubHub, for me, exemplify collaboration and what this cluster is all about. You know, these are volunteers that have come together in the hundreds with agility very quickly because they want to do the right thing. And personally, massively impressed by them, and we're looking forward to hearing from those guys. We then break into cyber rooms. I'm hoping, Andrew, that's kind of easier than it sounds, to do some speed networking. And then there's member news and AOB from attendees. And we're hoping to finish by 3:15. So hope you enjoy it, hope you get engaged. And I'll now hand over to the Right Honourable Trudy Harrison.
Thank you. You promoted me there, Ivan. I'm actually just honourable. Only members who have been privileged to join the Privy Council sitting on the front bench are entitled to be called Right Honourable, but I'll forgive you.
Just a matter of time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to join you at Britain's Energy Coast. You're an absolutely fantastic outfit, and you know, long before having this job I was aware of the work that the cluster was doing, and it's brilliant to have Ivan, actually, who I usually go to when I need to understand something about businesses, particularly in the nuclear supply chain, or when there's a call to help. So thank you for all that you're doing, and for being so incredibly fantastic with the technology in these troubled times. It is brilliant how different businesses and community groups have come together, and even government have come together using Zoom technology. That is the technology of choice that the Prime Minister uses for Cabinet and for all the PMQ prep that I engage with. So really this morning, this afternoon rather, for the first 15 minutes, it's a bit of a chronological tour of coronavirus, and it takes me back to the 7th of January, which is the date that my dad sadly died in ICU. He had a ventilator, he had motor neuron disease, and in his last few hours, we were watching the news when this little known region of China was undergoing such a tragic time, and we were kind of saying, blimey, will it come to Britain, you know? And to think that in really one season, we've gone from watching that thinking how awful to enduring it. And if anybody's watched Contagion, I sometimes wonder whether the Prime Minister and Dominic Cummings have watched that with a box of popcorn to come up with the solution, because it's actually horrifically like living on that film set, but I can assure you that that was not the case. The government response has been very, very swift. The coronavirus bill was raced through the Commons and the Lords and enacted in record time. And I will pay tribute to the opposition, who actually have worked very, very collaboratively with us. We haven't had a division for many, many weeks because we've been able to work with the whips offices across all parties, and that's why we were able to bring forward the Coronavirus Act, which has changed life. It's changed the way we learn, the way we work, and the way we all live. The restrictions have been easier for some than others, and I think it's quite a common kind of phrase now to say we're all in this storm, but we're in different boats, and I think that's very, very true. The response in Cumbria has been outstanding. I think the strategic coordinating group, the kind of gold command at a Cumbria level, and the local resilience forum have worked very closely together. I have regular calls with Michelle Skier, who chairs that each week, and with the various groups around the county who are supporting the most vulnerable people, businesses, individuals, and connecting volunteers with those folks as well, which is really, really impressive how swiftly that's been done. The big challenge really has been PPE most recently. I know you're going to talk about this later. And I just can't stress enough how hundreds of thousands of people have been involved with making billions of pieces of equipment available. It has been an incredibly huge global challenge, and there will be many lessons learned, not least the defective equipment that you're going to be discussing later. So just on the Cumbria kind of response, we've actually done quite well in Cumbria. We were ahead of the curve. Neither of the hospitals in my constituency who have ICU departments have been overwhelmed, and that's very much thanks to the work of John Howarth and his team in making available the COVID Response Centre, which has not been used, and I hope it's never used, but it's available in a kind of recovery sense if that time happens, and we hope we don't get a second spike, but it is available. And then we've also got the Flatwalks Clinic in Whitehaven, which is now engaged in lots of testing. Nationally, we did hit about 122,000 tests, I think. That has reduced, so can I just encourage you all to share the message that please go and get tested. Lots of people are now eligible. I was able to virtually thank the British Armed Forces who came to Lillyhall over the weekend. They carried out 3 days of drive-through testing, and it was really simple. It was literally taking a swab, popping it into your mouth, up your nose. Nobody was sick. It's as simple as that, and it is only with testing and then tracking and tracing that we will be able to overcome this before we have treatment or a vaccine, and that's many, many months away. So the Track and Trace app is being developed. It's being tested at the moment on the Isle of Wight. We're encouraging as many people as possible on the Isle of Wight to download the app, recognising that not everybody has a smartphone. There are other methods being put in place to track people and then to also trace who they've had contact with. That will be a fundamental part of recovery as we move forward. And in addition to lots of testing, because that provides the data of who's most at risk and who they've been in contact with, and the tracking and tracing methods, it will be about those physical or social distancing policies. The Prime Minister has already stated in PMQs this afternoon that he will be making an announcement on Sunday, and we can expect that businesses will be asked to consider how they can return to work while still encouraging as much home working as possible. I'm not sure whether there'll be a change to the businesses which are listed in the Ministry of Homes and Local Government's guidance that need to stay closed. They're mostly around retail, leisure, hospitality. But businesses that aren't on that list should firstly continue to work from home wherever possible, but in parallel should be making their policies and procedures in accordance with the 5 tests. And just to take you through those 5 tests, essentially it's about ensuring that we don't overwhelm the NHS, and in particular the critical care, the ICUs, to make sure that we continue to have enough oxygen and ventilators and beds available and staff. We hear a lot about the R factor, and it's also really important that that R factor, the reinfection rate or the reproduction rate of the virus, continues to decline. And I understand it's around about 0.7 at the moment. Different areas have recovered at different speeds. There's also a difference because the R factor in hospitals is most definitely coming down. The R factor in care homes is the #1 priority in Cumbria and for the nation at the moment, because that is quite concerning. So we do not want to see the R factor increase, because what that means is if you've got an R factor at, it's about 3.8 when this first started, when we introduced the lockdown kind of restrictions, that means, you know, for every one person, they will infect 3 other people, and they will infect 3 other people, and that's how the virus multiplies. The third test is ensuring that we have a continuous decline, which is sustained on the death rate of you know, people not dying is obviously really, really important, and reducing that death rate in a sustained and consistent way is critical. We're going to see an increased need for PPE, because just to give you a quick statistic, if all of the transport, the planes, the trains and the buses were back up and running as they were before the restrictions came into place, if we adopted the 2-metre social distancing rule, only 15% of people would actually be able to travel. So the remaining 85% would need to find different ways of getting to work, getting to school, getting around. So clearly we need to have as many services as possible. Clearly we need to have different methods of working, like home working, using technology, but we'll also probably depend upon some forms of PPE, because it just would not be possible, I don't think, to travel on public transport with that 2-metre rule in place, particularly in areas like London. And then the 5th test is ensuring that we don't endure a second spike which overwhelms the NHS. So all that will be borne in mind, and the Prime Minister will say more about this on Sunday. The businesses that will be first to open, I would imagine, will be the businesses that are not currently featuring on the MHCLG's list of businesses which should close. And that probably means many of the businesses in our area, particularly in the nuclear sector and manufacturing, the businesses that are going to get the country moving again, because our economy has absolutely tanked, as you will all know. And this is where I think our area shines most brightly, because we as a sector and a community are used to wearing PPE. We're used to dealing with health physics. We understand the concept of minimal human contact. Nobody wants to get too close to fissile material. And we have great, brilliant businesses who can help the newer businesses who are maybe less able. I'm thinking of Sellafield Limited have already offered to support businesses. They're already doing it, but they're very, very happy, eager and willing to support any others that need advice on social distancing policies. And the National Nuclear Laboratory, I keep holding them up on a platform. You know, 900 members of staff working from home and 100 or so working on site. Nobody is being furloughed. I think reaching out to those big businesses, when you're a small business and need advice on how to create a physical distancing policy for your workplace and your employees, is a really valuable asset to have, and I'd encourage you all to use that. And of course, government will be making information available. The Health and Safety Executive will be involved, and BEIS will be very much leading on this. And I think on that theme, really, now is the time to get your foot on the gas, because all of the challenges that were prevalent before coronavirus took over our lives, they're still there. So reducing the carbon footprint, ensuring that we hit that target of the 2050 zero carbon emissions is really, really critical. COP26 will still happen. It won't happen in September, but it will still be a priority for government. And then I think more than ever, as we look at the death rate across the nation, it is those communities that have been left behind, particularly in the Northwest, that have been most affected by deaths in their communities. So look after yourself, because now is the time to really, really value your health. If you've ever thought about going on that diet, now's the time to do it. Use your exercise window of opportunity to get fit. Quit smoking. Get yourself fit. Get your businesses in a position where they're fit, because I think our area is going to be a beacon of hope to other areas, actually, and I'll make sure to convey that to the Prime Minister and all of the departments on a continual basis. The Energy White Paper has been delayed, but actually I think that presents an opportunity. I think the work that Copeland Borough Council has done to come up with a nuclear prospectus in partnership with the LEP is brilliant. I'm delighted to be talking with EDF now, really serious talks about large-scale nuclear, but also about their support with advanced modular reactors, small modular reactors. Big news that Tom Sampson has joined and has the top position as the interim CEO with the UK SMR Consortium. I think that's a brilliant appointment. He understands our community so well. He's got a great track record. He understands the challenges more than anybody. He hasn't walked away. When the job became available, you know, he put himself forward, and I'm so pleased that he's on the team. So moving forward, you know, think about how we can be part of the global solution. Please get in touch with me, because I want to be part of your teams, and try and take some good from this awful situation, because there is quite a lot in the way that we're using technology to reach out to people and the community spirit. I'm so proud to be Copeland's MP. When I'm on my Tuesday 12:30 calls, listening to the way Gillian Elliott has kind of coordinated community groups across our area, I beam with pride, because Copeland, Cumbria has just responded with such agility and spirit that I'm so pleased I live here and I raise my family here.
All right, thank you very much, Trudy. Really appreciate that. So we have got a few questions that have come in through the chat. If you just want to introduce yourself and perhaps your role and the company that you represent, I'm going to start with Diane Richardson, who sent the first question. Diane, you're live now and able to answer that question.
Thanks, Andrew. Trudy,
Lovely
Diane here.
Diane.
You knew I'd be first in the list for the questions, didn't you? You just knew it. So my question was really around that analogy of we're all in the same storm but in different boats. So how do we make sure as we come out of this that people's boats don't disappear completely around them, and actually the most disadvantaged that have been hit hardest by the restrictions get the help they need from businesses? What do you think businesses should be doing around that?
Well, I think the statistic that came out yesterday, that I think 600,000 young people will go from education to the dole queue, essentially, is really, really dreadful. So I think if you can, please continue with your, you know, interviews and the process. If things need to be delayed, fair enough, but please give those young people hope, because they are our nuclear future in particular. We need to retain that skill set. And if it is just sending them a quick text or an email to let them know that you will be getting back to recruitment in due course, please do that. So that's really for businesses. But also, you know, now is not the time to be easing back. Now is to be using any spare time you might have to think about how we can do things differently and how we can lead, particularly as we need to help the Northwest. That's exactly what the nuclear industry will do because of the Northwest Nuclear Act. It's what we do, it's in our DNA. And solve the global challenge. I think EDF put out a brilliant video the other day. It was two guys from, oh gosh, now I'm showing my age, Love Island, something like that. Popular guys anyway. One of them was a nuclear engineer. And they're basically going down to some areas, Sizewell, talking about nuclear in a kind of trendy, mainstream way. if your company can do that, please crack on and do it, because I think we need to change the narrative in nuclear. We've been saying this for a long time, but it needs to come from companies within, because you're more credible than any politician having a go at it. And I think on the really serious point of protecting the most vulnerable, I think the work that has gone on around the county should continue. It isn't like a flood or another kind of emergency situation. I've been speaking with Michelle Skier, who explains that what we'll have here is recovery working in parallel with prevention, which is unlike anything folks have endured in Cumbria before in their kind of living memory. Systems have been put in place, and they should continue to be put in place. So I hope that the furlough system does continue in some way beyond the 1st of June for those companies that really cannot get back to work. But for the companies that can, please do so, because the economy needs you to do that, but do it in a safe way that protects the NHS and saves lives.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
that, Trudy. Can I just very quickly do a quick plug that says if people are interested in supporting youngsters, to come to the Social Value Group meeting tomorrow. Sorry, Andrew.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Diane. That's great. Tracy Todd, I'll come to you next. Just unmuted you, so you sent a question in through the chat.
Thank you, Andrew. Hi, Trudy.
Hello.
In regards to the track and trace that is going on, I think it was the government saying there was about 6,500 roles. Will any of those come to Cumbria? Will it be done locally? And if so, who's managing all of that?
Okay, somewhere in amongst here, I've got some statistics from PMQ Prep this morning. Track and trace. We aim to have 18,000 tracers by the 18th of May, who will be able to make 375,000 contacts daily. That's the aim. I've already said that the app is being trialled in the Isle of Wight at the moment. Specifically on Cumbria, I don't know the answer to that. Can somebody hook us up so I can find out and let you know, or let everybody know if it's something that many people are interested in?
That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Who was next? John Granger. So let me just unmute you. John, away you go. There you go.
Good afternoon, Trudy.
Hello, John.
I hope the girls are well.
Yes, they're all fine, thank you.
My question is, I'll follow the question in a second, but I think in terms of furlough, I think you're right. I think that the mooted reduction down to 60% contribution will actually fire off a number of people wanting to get back to work. But my question is related to that, which is, obviously we've got the hospitality sector in abundance, not just in Copeland, but obviously predominantly in the rest of Cumbria, particularly in the Lakeland area. Do you think that the reduction eventually of social distancing from 2 meters to 1 meter will actually have a dynamic effect of enabling people to go into hospitality sector and actually manufacturing work more closely together? Because the separation at the moment is going to be pretty pernicious, I think, as people go back to work.
Yeah, this is all led by the science. So basically what we're saying with the 2 meters is you have less chance of the water droplets from your mouth landing in somebody else's mouth if you're 2 meters apart. That's if you're face to face. If you're back to back, it's slightly different. It also depends on time. So I think it goes something like if you are, 1 meter apart, it's the same as being 2 meters apart for 6 seconds versus 15 minutes, something along that line. So the data is very much informing at what point we can reduce that 2 meter to 1 meter. And at this point, I would like to really commend the hospitality businesses who have thought outside the box. The cafes, I've got one in my village, the Bio Tea Rooms, they have adapted their business to actually go out and deliver takeaways to some of the most vulnerable people in our community. And I would continue to encourage any business that can innovate during this difficult time to continue to do so. And if they're just coming across some small challenges that they feel could be overcome with my intervention, then please get in touch. I think we'll learn more about support for the tourism sector and indeed every other sector a little bit more on Sunday. But I do think that actually, sadly, one of the biggest industries in Cumbria, as is the tourism, the visitor economy sector, is going to be one of the last to return to any kind of form of normality, simply because of the social interaction that comes with pubs and clubs and restaurants. So it's really, really difficult, and that's why I am pleased that the government has put so many financial packages in place for those businesses, and I hope that they continue to be available.
Okay, thank you, John. We've got 5 questions, so we'll race through these quickly if we can. Kath Howard was next. Kath, I've unmuted you.
Thank you. Trudy, you mentioned about Copeland Borough Council and the LEP producing a joint report on nuclear. Is that available for us to have a look at? And just secondly, does it look at social impact and on communities as part of it?
The prospectus at the moment is in draft form, but I'm very happy to speak with Rob Ward at Copeland Borough Council to ask if he's willing to share it with yourself. At the moment, social value isn't mentioned specifically. I think it's probably something that I will feed back that should be considered more, actually. It's more about aligning government policy with our local capability, I would say, at this stage.
Thanks, Trudy. And just to remember that obviously with local capability, it's local employment opportunities, which links into the social value side. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take that on board, and I will, you've actually chivied me on there to ask for more of the social value aspect to feature within this prospectus.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving swiftly on to Emma Lindsay.
Hi, thank you. Trudy, you mentioned just this afternoon about the importance of testing. As a recruitment agency, we supply temporary workers into a variety of industries, and they're all key, the majority of them are key workers. We've applied on the portal to be able to refer workers that are suffering with symptoms to get tested, but we still haven't heard anything back. We've had the automated response back, but we still haven't been able to actually refer the workers. What advice can you give to businesses that are in a similar situation, that are wanting to get their staff tested but they're unable to?
Absolutely, to get in touch with me, either on the telephone number, the office is actually open, 01229 718 333, or to email me, trudy.harrison.mp parliament.uk. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I feel like it was possibly wrong that. Anyway, you can Google it. But certainly please get in touch with me, because it should be working, and I will rackle the Department of Health and Social Care to ensure that any problems can be overcome.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. And on to William Roberts. You put a question in the chat as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Trudy. Do I need to press something?
No, you're live. We can hear you.
I am live. I'm never sure on these Zoom calls whether I'm live or not, to be quite honest. It sometimes feels like an afterlife. Now, the question I had was, I was amazed to hear Lord Deben on the Today programme this morning saying that funds for the economic recovery should really be earmarked for green businesses spread widely across the UK, and we should be retraining our talented people to work in green industries. Trudy, do you agree with this? Do you think the economic recovery will come from investment in green industry? And should that economic recovery investment package really be very targeted towards those who are combating climate change and improving the environment?
I think the low carbon industry absolutely should be prioritised. I worry about some businesses missing out because they're not considered green per se, because particularly in our area, you learn that many businesses use the anchor of Sellafield or the anchor of the nuclear industry, but actually they're involved with lots of other things as well. Yeah. So the devil will be in the detail here. But whether I see the energy sector as a way to level up and do everything that the Prime Minister promised to do and the government have promised to do, absolutely, fundamentally it's a yes. And where is the best area to do that? Right here in Cumbria as the centre of nuclear excellence.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, William. And final question. This one is from Dominic. I've unmuted you, Dominic, so you can ask your question to Trudy.
Thank you very much. Trudy, I'm interested to know how you think Cumbria may pull together post-lockdown to try and stimulate the economy. Obviously, it's heavily reliant on the tourism sector, on the big employers like BAE and Sellafield. Do you think there'll be any special stimulus measures put into place?
I'm not sure whether there'd be something that's on a geographical sector. If you're talking about a growth deal for Cumbria, I'm not sure that would be the case, but I think there will be growth deals and stimulus put in place for particular sectors like the energy sector. And I also think we'll see DCMS, Department of Culture, Media and Sport, engage in huge publicity efforts. When the time is safe and it's appropriate to do so, I think staycation will be really, really, marketed. And the beauty of our area, I've held off taking photographs of these beautiful blue sky days in my community because I don't want to tempt people to come to the Lake District if they're, from out of our area. But I do think people will have missed Cumbria, they'll have missed the Lake District, and they won't take much encouragement, but encourage them we will. So I think it will actually be more sector-based. And energy, farming, tourism will be three sectors, which fortunately Cumbria thrives from. And they're also top priorities for government.
But anything specific for SMEs, you think, or will it just be holistically?
I think it will probably be holistically. I haven't had any indication from Treasury that any business will be prioritised over any other business, actually. I think young people will be prioritised. I think we'll see apprenticeships continue to be supported, which is wonderful. Right. I also think that we'll see more support for further education, technical colleges, because it's long overdue in my opinion. And I think the value of skills, not just academia, is something that this government wants to prioritise. So really, our area ticks all of these boxes. We just need to get out there and promote ourselves, get in touch with me to help you do that down in Downing Street, come up with the policies that enable us to recover more quickly, and have an eye on the future. Be bold, absolutely be bold, because those three economies, the visitor economy, the farming economy and the energy economy, are absolutely critical to our recovery, and it's what we do best.
In the words of my mate John Berry, we need to be disruptive.
Yay!
Now's the moment.
Great, thank you, Dominic. Now, actually, I told a lie. There was one more question. It was that was pre-submitted to us, and I'll ask that question to you, Trudy, if I can. What support is available for direct to manage businesses? No payroll, only dividends. I think it's perhaps a common situation in a lot of the companies represented in the cluster.
Yes, and this has been, I would say, the most difficult one to answer, because the answer isn't great actually at the moment. And it takes me back to when I was working under an umbrella limited company, Brookson's I think was the name, 20 odd years ago, and I would have been in a pickle, quite frankly. I mean, for companies generally, there's been quite a lot of support. Companies who, the whole challenge here is that HMRC do not want to endorse kind of accountants' advice in paying what should be a salary or a wage through a dividend, because people should be basically taking their salary or the wage in a PAYE format and paying the appropriate level of tax. It was never designed to be used as a kind of salary or wage. So the things that have been available is there's the new government bounce back loan, which is 100% government backed. Depending on the size of the business, some may have been eligible for the small business support grants, and there are various, this is the bounce back loan, various other loans and grants available. Furloughing of staff, employees within that limited company, is perfectly possible as well, where staff would get 80% up to £2,500. What else have we got on here? deferring the next 3 months of VAT to help relax business costs in the short term, and government has temporarily suspended wrongful trading provisions for company directors, so that enables them to avoid the threat of personal liability during the pandemic. And then there's mortgage holidays as well. So there's a variety of different supports, but I'm afraid we will get nowhere persuading the Chancellor to offer the furlough scheme to directors who are dividend only, I don't think, because I have tried.
All right, thank you very much, Trudy. That's it. There's no further questions. So really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully that has been helpful for people watching this afternoon, and they've had answers, or at least that opportunity to ask questions to Trudy. So thank you again. Really appreciate your time. We will move on, and next up we have Garry Smith. Those of you in the member meeting the other week will know that Garry started a 3x3 on talking about PPE. So we shall move on to Garry now, and Garry is essentially going to continue some of that conversation, and I've unmuted you there now, Garry, so take it away as and when you're ready.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to come back. So just discussing really that the theme of this is don't be caught out. How can we prepare to get the workforce back into work? You know, we're looking to a return to work at some point. And I think we accept now, don't we, that normal is gone. Social distancing will be here for some time, and rightly so. And, you know, as a director of a company, we want our staff, our members, to be safe. Last week I discussed the challenge, the issue that we had, and also the solution. Today I'd like to share the challenges that we are coming across working with our skeleton staff. You know, steps that we're taking, that our learning. And I've also invited along Paul Manning from the British Safety Industrial Federation. He'll be sharing with us 3 points. Firstly, the challenges that they're facing with counterfeit products coming into the UK. Second, our legal responsibilities. And then thirdly, he'll be sharing with us a fact sheet that can help all of us identify the forged certificates that are coming into the country. So at Thomas Graham's, we are working with skeleton staff. You know, we're a critical supplier, and that's across 4 branches, including our drivers. But we're finding that social distancing is becoming more and more of a challenge. We've got a standard working practice to help with the safety of the team members, but we're finding that complacency can creep in very quickly, and we're having to continually reassess the situation and discuss this with the teams. Our standard working practice is, you know, real safe, you know, real basic things such as regular hand washing, but then we've had to add on to use barrier cream because hands get chapped, etc. We've put hand sanitizer next to the clocking in machine, but I think there's some more government guidance on that, saying that we probably shouldn't even be using clocking in machines at the area. But one important factor is all of the touch areas are cleaned. We use just a basic virucidal cleaner every day, lasts for 24 hours, with a blue roll, dispose it into the bin. You know, these are very, very simple things, but every department has to do it. So each of the members have a virucidal cleaner blue roll on their desks. So they clean their desks, phones, keyboards every couple of hours. We're now discussing things like removing chairs from the canteen. Everybody has their own pocket sanitizer. Where we probably find the biggest challenges in our industrial supplies, we're taking orders over the phone and B2B. And then the customers come to collect. And that's worked well to keep both our staff and our customers safe. And I must be honest, the weather's really helped because it's outside. But the challenge is the social distancing when we're together. We've had to do practical things like we've moved our computers. We've created a one-way system. We've created certain zones for certain people. But it is challenging. I think when you start to get your companies and other local companies coming back, these are the things that you really need to be thinking about. You know, just as an example, one thing that we've been discussing is even just high-vis vests. So just an example here from what AS Designs have done for us. I may have to change that to 1 meter if John gets his way, but just something so that people are aware and people are thinking about social distancing all the time. We're also discussing, for example, with these high-vis vests, to think, well, do we introduce a pink vest for those who want to be identified that they are higher risk or that they live with somebody at higher risk? We don't know what the teams will say, and a lot of this is down to what the teams feel and what they can work with. But again, we want to make sure that everybody's safe. But that Boy Scout motto is be prepared. We know that the government has some guidance on face masks and social distancing, where social distancing can't be adhered to. But it's about having the right mask for the right application. You know, don't overspec it. Does it need to be a surgical mask, or does it need to be an FFP3? The second challenge is actually getting those masks. You know, we've got surgical masks. We're getting FFP2 masks next month. And we have the opportunity of some FFP3. But to give you some idea, we're not talking about delivery until the end of July. And for us to make a decision on that to bring them in, we need to buy about 100,000. So we're trying to get feedback from industry before we can actually place an order of that size. But our feeling is that as distributors, we need to be bringing these products in. But then that's not the end of it, because we know that PPE is in short supply, but there's also counterfeit items. And this is really where the warning is: don't be caught out. So I'd like to pass you over to Paul Manning, and I'd just like to leave with saying just stay safe. So over to Paul.
Thanks, Gary. Paul, I've unmuted you now, so take it away.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Paul Manning. I represent the British Safety Industry Federation, BSIF. We are the UK's trade association for the safety industry. We have over 300 members that trade in safety and PPE products and or allied services. We're the lead authority on the PPE regulation 2016-425, the primary authority with trading standards and competent authority with the HSE. Currently, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the UK is being flooded with a huge amount of fake PPE personal protection equipment, which I'm sure you all know now. All covered apparently with all manner of spurious documentations. At the BSIF, we've been flat out actively involved in advising end user businesses, government departments, local authorities, and of course our members on a daily basis, helping them to filter out the non-compliant and report on our findings. It literally is, you know, we're talking hundreds in a week. One thing is assured though, as I mentioned earlier, PPE is no longer a backseat driver. It's a hot topic with everybody currently. And of course, along with this realisation of getting the supply right now, that's of paramount importance. Thomas Graham is a long-standing member of the British Safety Industry Federation. They've invited me to speak to you all, and I wanted to take this opportunity to raise your awareness as potential end users of PPE of some big changes to the supply chain that have taken place actually over the last few years. Okay, the UK supply of all PPE is now covered by a PPE regulation called 2016-425, which was adopted in April 2016 and left for a 2-year crossover, taking over fully from the old PPE Directive 89686 from April 2018 onwards. And this regulation is now firmly embedded into UK law. One of the major changes that you should be aware of is that unlike the old directive, the regulation shares the legal responsibilities and obligations of some supplying compliant PPE amongst the entire supply chain. thereby meaning that all economic operators involved in the supply of PPE are now looped into ensuring that the PPE is compliant ongoing. Okay, so who are the economic operators? Well, they're named as manufacturers, importers, authorised representatives, distributors, drop shippers, retailers. It's a blanket terminology, economic operator, for all parties involved with the supply of PPE. Now, obviously, looped into this supply chain is the end user, ultimately, of course, who has the direct responsibility to ensure that they source the right PPE. Risk analysis by now should, of course, include the use of PPE regulation 2016-425 companies and supply chains. To give end users the assurance of buying within a compliant supply chain, the BSIF audit every single one of our members. We audit their direct legal responsibilities and obligations as described in the regulation. We administer this through a scheme called the Registered Safety Supply Scheme, which is backed by trading standards and the HSE. Now, we would encourage everybody, and we do so regularly, to look for registered safety suppliers before buying PPE, especially right now, more than ever, whilst we face unprecedented quantities of fake, counterfeit and non-compliant PPE coming into our shores. 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, we released a document to help end users through what can appear a daunting task, that is, navigating your way to sourcing compliant PPE. Simply entitled a CE certificate checklist, it will steer you through exactly what to look for and what to avoid regarding the compliance of PPE. Used correctly, this document will teach you how to avoid sourcing non-compliant masks, gloves, face shields, etc. that we know have swamped our shores recently. So really, I want to put myself to you as a conduit to help you to avoid these things. This on the far left of the screen is the frontispiece of the CE certification check sheet that I'm quite happy to run through with you later. But in the middle is a very common culprit. So in China, they're producing massive quantities of masks. In Europe, we have all the notified bodies who are responsible for issuing the certificates, the EU type certificates that make the masks therefore compliant in UK and in Europe. But this is an Italian notified body called ECM. Now, they're not scoped for anything to do with PPE. They have other scopes, mechanical directives and things, but not PPE. But they've been issuing certificates to PPE, thereby getting people in the UK to believe that these masks are therefore compliant and buying them. Of course, when they reach our shores, we find that that is based on nothing more than a lie, because the ECM certificate is fraudulent. The one on the far right-hand side, so that's a false EU type certificate or EC type certificate. This is claiming to be a document that you could then place CE marking on your PPE goods. The one on the far right is from BEC testing. So this one is claiming to be a certificate of or a declaration of conformity for a PPE item directly from a laboratory. I mean, they just cannot release that kind of information. And when you actually look at BEC, there is actually a website, but it looks like something that's been suddenly invented over the last 2 weeks, which no doubt it probably has. So, and this is just a few of the things that we've come up against. We're literally, the one in the middle, ECM, we have hundreds of those in a week. Hundreds all coming in a flood from commercial operators who've actually bought them. So they find once they've bought them, they have container loads of masks, which unfortunately are not compliant. So yeah, just and the registered safety supply scheme, which I mentioned, is represented by the shield up there in the top left-hand corner. That's where we audit the legal responsibility obligations of all our members under the PPE regulation, which is the thing that's backed by trading standards and the HSE. The top right-hand corner is the primary authority status that we, the coordinated primary authority status that we have of trading standards. So that takes me to the end of my little piece. If are we opening up for questions, or are we doing that later?
Thank you, Paul and Gary. We've not actually had any questions, so given that we are just running over slightly, I think we'll move on. We'll just raise, Sally Seed has made quite a good point in the chat, which is worth just looking at. I'm not going to read it out, it's a slightly longer post, but just makes the association with mountain rescue and perhaps if you've got volunteers on your team, they might want to consider PPE as people head back out into the hills. But thank you both for your insights there, Gary and Paul. I'm going to move on now to our 3x3 session, and just bear with me while I shuffle a few things around on my screen. So this is from ScrubHub, and we have Claire Riley, who your mic is on now, Claire, so you're able to start. I don't know if it was yourself or...
We're both here now.
You're both there? Perfect. Okay, that's great. So just remember, this is subject to egg timers. I'm sure Diane will have that at the ready. But your 3 minutes to tell us about ScrubHub starts now.
Right. Hello. So it all began... can you put the next slide up? Sorry, Andrew.
I certainly can.
Yeah. So it all began on the evening of Good Friday, when I saw a shout out on Facebook from a local surgery looking for people to sew and coordinate the sewing of some scrubs. So I created a Facebook group for other volunteers to join. Now, on day 26, we have over 400 volunteers carrying out a variety of roles, from home sewing to coordination, packing, doorstep deliveries, etc. We believe that every volunteer should be invited in and given a job, because the benefits we're seeing in terms of mental health, with the interactions and a sense of purpose. We've now had over 200 orders from all around Cumbria, including hospitals, GP surgeries, those surgeries that are running the red hubs, care homes, CHOC, and the ambulance service. They equate to about 800 sets of scrubs and a further 3,000 accessories. 300 sets of scrubs are now in service, being worn by our healthcare workers, and a further 60 are in checking and packing, ready for dispatch today. Feedback we've had is that they're really good quality, higher than what they normally get. We've raised over 14,000 so far and spent 12,500 of that on the scrub material, thread, etc. And we currently have enough fabric left for 260 sets of scrubs.
Okay, fundraising to date.
The next slide, Andrew.
Sorry, this is Eleanor now. So fundraising to date has been very hard earned from very small businesses and individual donations. Local opportunities are now at a minimal. Our mantra has always been to be able to provide free scrubs to those in caring roles, only donations been asked for if they could afford it. Currently, our concerns are that based on the current inquiries, we may receive a very large order or large orders from a number of places, and we cannot meet those orders with existing resources, both money and materials. As you can see, we are a bit hand to mouth there. We don't actually want to ask for a huge amount of money or material to then find that the scrub supply chain issue has been resolved. Currently, it's not actually seen as an issue. So our ask is that if our concerns regarding large orders come to fruition and our current resources cannot meet this demand, we will need some financial support for procurement, or we'll actually have to have help to highlight at official level, i.e. mast and above, that there is an issue with the lack of scrubs in this area and other areas in frontline roles and supporting roles within the healthcare sector. And then we hope as a result of that, that we'll actually have funding released from those bodies, or other options will be made available to those in need.
Okay, I think, sorry to interrupt you, but is that Diane? It sounds like Diane's just been able to pop up on the mic.
When I said I can't press the button, I meant I couldn't stop you, because this is just such brilliant stuff.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Oh, I've spoilt it now.
No, it's fine.
45 seconds over.
If you can send me those slides, I'll take them into the social value group tomorrow as well, because there'll be different people there.
All right, great. So thank you, Claire and Eleanor, for that. Right, something new which we're going to try. I'm sure you've all been missing the member meeting and the opportunity just to see who's in the room. We're not going to go round the room as it were today, but we are just going to split you up very quickly for literally 5 minutes into breakout rooms, groups of 4. And you obviously can use that time as you wish. If you know people, you can just have a bit of a catch up. If you don't know them, introduce your business, any current challenges or opportunities that you might have. So it'd be quite interesting to see how this works out. It's something new. In fact, just looking at this, we're going to end up with the numbers that we've got left between 4 and 5 participants in the room. So you've got really about 40 seconds, quick introduction, who you are. It's even longer, in fact, than you normally get in the round the room. So use the time wisely, and I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms now. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Still a few people just coming back through. Hopefully that was useful. It's something that we've tried, and one of the things that I'll pop up on screen in just a moment is the Menti feedback form that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with seeing. It'd be great to get your feedback on that rather than going around the room. Obviously that's going to take a little while, but hopefully I didn't cut you off mid-flow and you perhaps got a bit of that connection, maybe even found some opportunity in there, but hopefully that was helpful. Now, if anybody has any member news or any other business, then please make yourself known to me through the chat. Rachel Atkinson, so you are first in there. That was a quick one. So I've unmuted you. You've got some news to share.
Hi, yeah, I'm from KFA. I just wanted to promote a competition that we're running at the moment for primary school children in Copeland and Allerdale. It's in association with the Primary Business Partnership. Basically, it's a poster competition open to all primary school children. All the posters are going to be displayed in the main canteen and Tallerfield site once we get back to work. The theme is Love Where You Live, so it's quite open, quite creative. So if you've got children or you know any teachers, please pass it on to those. We'll share the email address and everything for submission via Hazel. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Rachel. While I'm just getting this Menti slide, anybody else who wishes to share any news or any other business to other members in the meeting? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, doesn't seem like it. I feel like Ken Bruce on Popmaster now, getting into the swing of this. Right, let's pop up the code for today's meeting. As you know, we do look at these feedback forms that you submit. It's anonymous. We can't see who sent it through, but it is valuable to us to be able to see what you think and what you're getting out of these sessions. So please go to menti.com, and the code for today's meeting is 144314. I'll just read that again. So it's menti.com. You can do that on your phone, or you can do it online on a desktop, and just put the code in 144314, and that will make sure that your feedback is collected and associated with this meeting. Okay, just give you another 10 seconds or so to capture that, and then I shall hand across to Ivan, and he'll close the session, and we'll be pretty much on time. I'm assuming there's no further questions for Garry and Paul. We were going to allow just some extra time for anything around the PPE issues that they've raised. If there is anybody who still wants to ask that question, then please do just post in the chat, and we can capture that quickly perhaps before we wrap up. But failing that, I will hand across to Ivan, and we'll draw things to a close. Ivan, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. It's good timing actually, because my eldest kids have just arrived, so you might get some others jumping into view any minute now. Thanks for mentioning Ken Bruce, because he's another housewife's favourite, isn't he, really? So it kind of like cements that reputation that you've got. You know, what came out today in abundance for me is the real importance of people and relationships here. So having those breakout sessions for networking, I really enjoyed it. I'm a social animal, so I find myself now asking to go to the supermarket just so that I get the chance to see someone who's not my partner or my kids. So actually doing something like that is really important. So it was great to see so many people. I also want to give a big shout out to Martur that's joined us for the first time. Martur is our new patron that's going to join us as of September. So massive shout out to you, Martur. Thanks for joining us. Hope you got a lot out of it today. Moving forward, just wanted to make a quick sort of point about the fact that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in the cluster board about looking forward. What does the new normal look like? What do you members need from us? You know, a real value that's coming out here is leave nobody behind. You know, Trudy made the analogy before about same storm, different boats, but you know, people are going to be in different boats. Some of those boats are going to be leaky, and as an organisation that really is about the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, it's very much about leaving nobody behind. We're going to engage you in that, so a future session will be about that, so that what we do moving forward will be shaped by you, will be shaped by the membership. So once again, thanks for joining us, thanks for taking the time, and I hope everybody keeps safe and well, and I look forward to seeing people next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ivan. That's it for another session. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the next event, which it will be tomorrow. In fact, we've got a couple of events tomorrow, but full details on the BECBC website. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks very much.